I'm Molly Davis and I'm here with
Maggie. I work as an adult programme worker at Rochdale Connections Trust, and I've worked here for just over a year working with men on probation. I think I've seen over the 20-30 years of working in the NHS the ramifications of being abused as a woman. See many females be admitted, could be through alcohol, drugs, substance misuse, depression, suicidal, trying to hide from their partner, feeling that that's the only place they can be, that their mental health improves while they're on the ward. And you might think, well, that's because they're getting the treatment, medication, counselling, therapy. But I think it's also if they're removed from that situation. And often then the problem is they're expected to go back. And I think very early on, if you go back to the 80s, if a woman was to flee domestic violence and go to the police, it wasn't uncommon for the police to return the woman back to the house and say, well, you know, you're the wife, you have to go back. This is what you have to deal with.
It's crazy how a person can be expected to return to that sort of a situation.
Yeah, and that's when you then see people, what the old term would be revolving door. And you'd see people get well and then return home, and then maybe within a few months back again with inexplained injuries, bruising, absolute fear. And then they have that time where they're okay on the ward, nowhere else for them to go, and they go back again. And they sort of feel that's just how it is. That's what life does to you as a woman. Almost that old-fashioned notion of, you know, you've made your bed, lie in it.
Yeah.
And even some of the old nursing and medical staff would still feel that was what your lot is in life, get on with it.
Do you think we've come very far from that? So like from the 80s and the way it was treated, do you think there's been a change?
I think there has. I think there's more support for women now. But I think for some women, they are so consumed within that relationship, they're not always aware of how to get out of it or where to go. And I'm aware of women with young babies who suddenly feel, I'm a young mother, where could I go? I've got no family, I've got no support. They could be so estranged from the family, and they literally do sort of try to hunker down and think, I can't be homeless, I can't be on the streets, I've got 2 babies. So they put up with it and make the best deal that they can. Even if they're at the point where there isn't any love anymore, it's been beaten out of them, but there is that part of, I can't leave that house, I can't go out of that door because where can I go? Right. And I've been aware of where I've seen male nurses or even male police officers are abusers. You know, and I certainly know of, you know, I'm thinking about my own history when I was a child, and my dad was a mental health nurse. I often remember him saying he could get my mum sectioned. Using
the position as power, as a control technique.
Yeah, even though, and look at me at my age, knowing that he wouldn't have that power. But if you can imagine that someone's so beaten down and you have that guy going, I can take your life away, I could have you literally incarcerated. It's not just, I think, that the woman thinks, oh, he could do that. What you've got is you have the whole feeling of the nursing profession or the whole of that police force on their side. So who's going to listen to you? They haven't got anybody at all.
Yeah. Do they have that power? Do they have the power to actually have people sectioned that easily, or is it more complex than that?
I think it's a lot more complex. But I think if you're frightened and you're anxious and someone's saying they can do that, I guess what happens is that woman sort of thinks actually maybe they could.
Yeah, what if?
Yeah.
What if it's not a bluff?
What if what they say is enough for the other professionals who are needed to sign that piece of paper? Maybe.
Yeah, because that's when you look at like the need for a systematic change, isn't it? Because you have the fear then that, well, if one mental health nurse is doing that, then is there a group of peers among them who are doing the same thing, who will sign off on something, who will say, yeah, I'll do that, who will just do it because they're buddy, so.
Yeah, and if someone, I guess, puts a good enough slant on it, who knows where that goes. I mean, I think it wouldn't be that easy But I think if you're someone and you're completely on your own, and you are literally, you could be away from your family at the other end of the country, I think that sort of fear and scare would be, well, I'll be on the streets.
Yeah.
Or I could lock you up and you'll never come out again.
Yeah, the threat's enough.
Yeah, I mean, the Mental Health Act has changed a lot over the years, but I think men still use that of, I can do this, I can control, I've got everybody on my side. They won't believe you. They'll believe me because I'm a professional. So my peers will stand with me. I've told my peers about you. So what are you going to do about it? And I certainly remember my mum, when I was very young, I think fleeing my dad, and the police bringing her back.
It's astounding that they do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know even in the last sort of 10, 15 years with someone, you know, there was an issue about someone being hit, and the guy who was a copper, he told his children to hide under the blankets, and when the police came, they checked on the wrong kids. Didn't do anything, and they certainly took his side about what was going on. So I think there is always going to be a risk of people in power abusing it.
Yeah.
I think there has to be a system change, but I think wherever there's any career where there can be a power imbalance, it will be always open to abuse. I think what we can try and do is promote people having a voice.
Yeah.
To be able to speak up and to feel that they will be heard, they'll be trusted, that no matter what. And we're seeing that now, aren't we? We're seeing people, particularly women, speak up now about policemen or people in any other profession, or nursing or law, whatever, saying actually you can't do that. Even the film industry.
Yeah, definitely.
We're getting actors now going, that happened to me. And I think that's the biggest thing that we can give to women is, you've got a voice.
Yeah, you've got a voice and it's okay to use it.
Yeah.
It's just sort of...
And it'll be heard.
Yeah, giving them a safe place to use the voice where they're not putting themselves at more risk.
Yeah.
And they can trust that it's not just going to be brushed under the carpet.
Yeah, and I think we can see that. You know, we see that on the news where people are being heard and it is being investigated and it is being upheld. And I think that's the biggest thing we can give women, is to say change is happening.
Yeah.
It'll be slow, but it's happening.
Yeah, we are fortunately on our way to hopefully having a better and safer place for women.
I mean, I remember one thing, as a nurse at a South London hospital, this young woman had been found naked and mute, and she came into hospital and she was really quite unwell because she wasn't taking any nutrition, and she was on the ward. And we didn't really know what had gone on with the family, but at one point we had this professor and he wanted to give her a truth drug to find out about the trauma and what had gone on, but we blocked it because we felt he was a male professor and it would look good for his research, and the nurses won in the end. We blocked him doing that because we felt that she was mute and she couldn't give consent. He saw something in it where he could have this research and get it printed and published. And we as a whole team of nurses went, you're not doing it to her. No. Not to fulfill your ego. And this woman was still vulnerable. So we blocked it in the end.
Good. I feel like you've seen some things through years, Maggie, haven't you?
Yeah, it's not until you stop and reflect do you suddenly think, blimey, I've witnessed and heard some stuff you wouldn't want anyone else to.
Yeah, like you sort of piece it together, because I think that's the problem when we look at individual incidents of violence against women and girls or suppression of women. When you look at one singular incident, that incident on its own, terrible as it is, does not reflect the gravity of what is actually going on. And I think when you start piecing things together in your mind and you think, oh yeah, like that happens a lot to me and it happens a lot to you as well, and this is just something that's happening. I think when you look at how commonplace these events are, you realise like it's embedded in society. It's crazy to think that we're still at this point. Yeah, we've got more rights and we're more protected than we were 100 years ago.
Absolutely.
But we're still not safe.
No.
We're still not completely protected, and we still don't have the same level of protection as men,
No.
or the same amount of power as men.
No, I mean, I remember another woman when I was a student nurse. She came into hospital. She was very unwell. She was pregnant and she wanted a termination, and she couldn't get one in the town because of the male doctors and surgeons being against it. And we had to get her out of area so that could be fulfilled, just because there was this view with males in that town. It won't happen. The strength of that to prevent a woman making her own decision.
Yeah.
We had to sneak her out to another area where she could have that.
Wow.
And that we couldn't get them to understand that it was thought through. She felt she wasn't in the right place, and so on and so forth, and that if they'd made her go through with the pregnancy and the birth, what that impact would have been on her mental health. And they just didn't want to know. It was, this is our view and it's not happening.
So, from your experience, why do you think it's important for men to support the White Ribbon campaign?
I think we still have the element where men have some superiority and power, and I think it's for them to stand together and say women can have the same.
Yeah.
Women should be able to be out in the gyms, in the streets, in shopping, wherever, to know that someone is watching their back.
Yeah.
If another guy isn't to that standard. I think men should be standing up and going, we're not part of that.
Yeah.
And whether it's because they feel that they're not part of it, they don't want to, or that they're not that sort of a person, I think that makes it more that, well, stand up, be that person. Say you're going to protect. And it's about protecting other humans, humanity.
Yeah.
And let's not have places and streets with fear.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Maggie.
Thank you.
Very interesting to talk to you.